Hey y'all, welcome to my first YouTube video. So that's not exactly true, but this is the first movie review that I am posting on YouTube. I usually do them on TikTok, but I wanted to move away from such a short form platform so I could talk more about the movies, because 3 minutes is not enough. Anybody who knows me in real life knows that I can talk, so 3 minutes is just not enough to talk about movies. Whether I like them, I love them, I didn't really like them, I just feel like 3 minutes is not enough. So now we can really get into the nitty gritty thoughts and really break things down. So if you like that kind of thing, then stick around, because we're going to get into Pixar's new movie Elemental that I recently saw in theaters, and we can discuss it. So basically, I saw Elemental and was like, I have to write an essay about this. And that's what I have here on my iPad, is just what I wrote. So I'm going to be reading off of it, and this is everything, my ideas, but of course I'll take breaks to kind of talk things through in between. But it's only about 2,000 words. It sounds like a lot. It's barely 4 pages. I promise this now. We won't be here all day, okay? So without further ado, let's get into the review. I went into Elemental with a general idea of what was going to happen and who the main characters were. The story is set in a fictional elemental city where everyone belongs to a class of nature: earth, cloud, water, or fire. I knew our protagonists, Ember and Wade, were going to be from the fire and water people respectively. I also knew Ember's story was going to be that similar to an Asian immigrant daughter trying to find her place in the world. Lastly, I knew Ember and Wade would develop a deep connection. Now, I learned all of this from watching a teaser and the trailer, along with Googling the movie and looking at the cast. I'm not gonna lie, I do that with most movies. As soon as I see a trailer, or as soon as I see one of those film pages on Twitter post about a new movie coming out, I will literally Google it and see who the director is, who's working on it, who's the cast, and that's how I decide if I'm gonna go see a movie. Or if the premise is just cool enough and I don't even know who the cast is, I will still go see that movie. You don't have to do much to convince me to see a movie. You just gotta be like, girl, I heard there's a new movie coming out, and I'll be like, yeah, I'm gonna go see it. They'd be like, I didn't even tell you what was happening. I didn't even tell you what was going on. You don't have to. I will go see it. It's okay. I'm going to go see it. But while doing all of this Googling, I learned that all of the voice actors for Ember and her family were Asian. So I assumed once the immigrant family narrative was announced that it would be closer to that experience. And I was correct. I wasn't far off at all, and I appreciated the basic understanding of what was going on from the trailer, because there is very little world building in the actual movie for Elemental City. Now, I'm going to go into it in detail, but this is because the interworkings of Elemental City is necessary to understand, but you don't really have to explain it that much if you're somebody who interacts with the world that is not made for you, which I feel like the movie is about. But knowing Elemental City, it's not going to be that big of a deal. You see some things, but they don't really explain Elemental City. Now, Firetown, that's a different story. In fact, all we knew about the city is the fact that it was founded/discovered by the water people. Then the earth and cloud people came later. All of the world building is rightfully so dedicated to Firetown, which is based kind of off of Chinatowns that we see probably all over the country, but most famously known in LA and the California area, When the movie starts off, there are almost or actually no fire people in the city. Ember's parents come to the city with what they could carry and discovered a world that did not cater to them after living exclusively in a country that was made up of people just like them. Ember's parents dealt with xenophobia immediately. The government official checking them into the country changes their names on their documents because of how difficult it is to pronounce their actual names. They introduce themselves in the movie and they speak their native tongue to say their names. And he looks at them for a second and is like, yeah, you're Bob and Mary. That's not their actual names, but that's basically what he did. The housing marketing was dehumanizing. No one would rent to them because they were fire people and assumed they would be a liability. Now, I wasn't familiar with that and necessarily the Asian diaspora history, but I am more familiar with it as experiencing housing discrimination with black people. And let me tell you something, that is a racist practice. I'm telling you, we are not even 10 minutes into this movie, and racism, xenophobia, we're just met right off the back with that. So they found an abandoned building in the far outskirts of Element City, and Ember's father literally built their new home, their family business, and a new fire community. So they found an abandoned building in the far outskirts of Elemental City. Oh, it's not Elemental City, it's Element City. So they found an abandoned building in the far outskirts of Element City, and Ember's father literally built their new home, their family business. After learning all of this backstory, this is when we meet Ember. Ember is born in this new country, so she knows nothing of the fire country and has never visited. She does learn her culture through her parents, so this is thankfully not a story of assimilation. In fact, Ember's father is so scarred by their experiences from when they first came to Element City that he has embedded the mindset into her that their family does not need to interact with any other kind of people except fire, and especially not water. Okay, so we're getting into something that I think a lot of people of color in this country can kind of relate to. Every group of people I feel like does that, because it's just like there are literal forces here just created to oppress you. If you stay with your people, we can kind of keep that from happening or kind of help each other out to fight back against that. So it's never from a place of oh, we hate them. It's literally out of self-preservation. So we're going to break away from the plot and kind of talk about my opinions now. I think when watching this movie that it's easy to say that the water people are an allegory for white people in this country. They were the first people to come to and establish the country, and while every other group is catered to except for fire people in this world, for example in public transportation and in public spaces, they're not really made with fire people in mind. It's almost literally implied that fire people shouldn't be in those spaces, if you get that. The water people seem to be thought of first. The water people also seem to hold the most wealth in this country. But I believe that the choice to cast Wade's voice actor as a black man was intentional. While possibly done for diversity, in my opinion it was to show that this is not a one-for-one adaptation of current race relations between white, black, Asian, and brown people in America. I believe this is further proved by the various aspects of many different types of Asian cultures. I'm not an expert, so don't quote me. Of many different types of Asian cultures used to make up the fire people. And I feel like once you see the entire community of fire people, I feel like it's not just East Asian, if that makes sense. It's different parts of Asia in general, to I guess relate to all different types of Asian people that are going through the Asian diaspora, you know? Still, in this movie, the fire people and Ember reach people of all cultures. Ember is a first-generation citizen of Element City, but is more proud to be a fire person. She respects the traditions of her people and actively participates in the community. She is the perfect immigrant daughter, except for her temper. Ember's temper literally holds her back from taking over her family's business and allowing her father to retire. Her failure to live up to the expectations of her father leads to immense guilt, and Ember not allowing herself to focus on anything else but exceeding her parents' expectations of her. Her life is a series of mess-ups and cleanups, which is also reflected in the plot of this movie. This story is not straight and narrow, leading up to a grand climax settled with a calming solution. Ember's story is full of ups and downs, like large waves that are crashing at the shore. She can withstand some and completely fall with others. But her growth into her identity outside of being fire is a journey just as beautiful as the glass she makes. I was really proud of that paragraph. I thought, I was like, girl, not you in your writing bag, purr. We again see Ember deal with bigotry as an adult and having to stand up for herself versus having a parent to stand up for her. I think a lot of people of color or anybody just marginalized can remember the first time they had to stand up to or deal with racism or any type of ism on their own, and it's a life-changing experience. And even kind of dealing with microaggressions, once you get to a certain age, you realize they're microaggressions. They're not all jokes. They're not laughing with me, they're laughing at me, you know? The same can be said of Wade confronting racism. Wade never had to think about what it was like for fire people in Element City, how public spaces are not made for them, and how the fire portion of the town was created not out of innovation but out of necessity. Wade learns that Ember's family shop is not up to code, not because they were lazy, but because the only way they could make a business and a life for themselves was to literally build it themselves. Confronting, unlearning, and dismantling harmful stereotypes and systems takes a lot of work, and showing what doing that work looks like as an adult is what Elemental's bread and butter is. This perspective is used when talking about other themes as well. What does stepping out from your family's expectations as a first-generation immigrant look like? Ember deals with a lot of guilt of living up to her family's expectations, despite not being able to do what she wants for herself, due to their sacrifices. What does these family relationships look like? Ember mentions as an adult that she has never cried in her life. Ember's family is also not very vulnerable with each other, as opposed to Wade's family, who cry and hug each other all the time. Like, that's one of the running jokes, that they cry all the time. And Ember, the way she looks at them while they're crying, not gonna lie, I was cackling. It was so funny. Wade cannot keep a job and doesn't know what life has in store for him, while Ember knows exactly what her life has in store for her and does not want to take that path. Love in this movie is something that isn't explored in Turning Red or Inside Out. There are no romantic relationships in that movie versus in this one. Ember and Wade have a budding relationship throughout the film, but both of their differences and experiences present challenges. Both of them have to make the effort to get rid of their own biases in order to explore a healthy relationship with each other. What I'm about to say is the most important thing that you should take away from when it comes to the movie Elemental, okay? Listen to me when I say this, okay? So we've already talked about the fact that Ember has a temper problem in this movie. Like, she blows up, gets as hot as lightning. Let me tell y'all something. Ember's very bad temper is set off by stupid customers at her family's shop and people being ignorant because she's a fire person. As a black woman, I have never related to a PIXAR movie so much. Like, as someone who has worked in customer service and dealt with, like, ignorance as a black person, they were speaking to me in the studio, writing for me. I was called to, like, seeing my experiences on screen. This is what they call representation, okay? Take it from me, okay? I just felt, when she would blow up at them, and I mean quite literally blow up, I felt validated. I almost started clapping in that theater, okay? But let's continue. We've talked about all the pros. I've gone on for probably forever about all the pros, but let's get into what's not so great about the movie. I've gushed about how great this movie is the entire time, but that does not mean that it is perfect. I do believe that PIXAR was its own greatest enemy when it came to the overall success of this movie. Whether you want to blame it on the marketing, the timing of the release, after other Disney blockbusters like The Little Mermaid and Across the Spider-Verse, which is Sony/Marvel. Marvel is Disney, as we know. The movie theater cost, or just the story itself, it's true that this PIXAR film is not competing well with previous movies in previous years. It's important to note that Elemental is not only PIXAR's second movie to be released in theaters since the start of the pandemic. Lightyear was the first. And I believe that Lightyear had a similar problem with marketing. There were so many fan theories about what Lightyear was supposed to be about. Was it based on the animated TV show from, like, what was it, the late 90s, early 2000s? Was it the movie that Andy saw that made him want Buzz Lightyear as a toy? Was it in the same universe as the other Toy Story movies, similar to, like, Woody's little movie or TV show from Toy Story 2? Lightyear ended up being a standalone film with all new characters that those who love the Toy Story franchise were not familiar with. Lightyear was ultimately deemed as a box office failure. Even I had tickets and canceled going to see the day of because I was too tired to go. I eventually ended up watching on Disney Plus months later, just to turn it off halfway through. Please, please, please. For me, the film took itself a little too seriously and missed the self-aware humor that I associate with Toy Story 1 and 2. The cover of Elemental alone does not represent the whole story of the movie. Ember and Wade are on the cover looking very friendly with each other with the slogan "Opposites Attract" next to them. The aforementioned themes for the first generation immigrant experience or self-discovery cannot be implied from that poster. Hell, you don't even get Element City in the background like you do with Zootopia, which may have been on purpose to like prevent the claims that they look alike, you know? But for a world as vast and as colorful as Elemental, there's literally a point that Ember interacts with other minerals and she shows how her fire changes color. And this is just something she just knew about herself and was just like, yeah, I can do that. Girl, do you not see how cool you are? And then Wade told her, because he's an unproblematic king. I was like, am I falling in love with the drop of water? Because Wade's an unproblematic king, okay? We stand him over here. I love him. If Ember didn't get with him, I was like, because these men out here, no thank you. No thank you. No thank you. The poster has a black background, which is ultimately uninviting and was a mistake. While the animation is not as bold as the Spider-Verse movies, we are having fun in this movie, so let's see a fun poster, please. Please, what is wrong with y'all? However, I've learned to ignore the posters, the box office numbers, which actor's name is attached to a project, etc. Which might sound like I'm going back on what I said earlier. Like, oh, I'll Google a movie, see who's in it, and that'll make me decide if I want to go see it. I just told y'all, like, all of that is just background research. When there's a movie that sounds like I want to go see it, I just do a little bit of research. I don't have to be convinced to go see a movie, though. Just tell me to go see the movie, and I'll go see it. And that's what I'm telling y'all. Don't be, like, convinced to go see a movie. If you hear something's coming out from PIXAR, you like PIXAR movies, you went to go see the other, just go see it, you know? All the stuff I listed, though, will not tell you if a movie is going to be good. Through AMC's A-List subscription, I've been able to see more movies in theaters in the last year and a half than probably my entire life. Movies in theaters. I've seen a lot of movies in my entire life. If a movie's premise or teaser/trailer looks good, then I'm in. I do try to avoid trailers best as I can, though, because they literally suck. Tell you the entire plot. Nothing is a mystery. The best way to make an informed opinion about a movie is to watch it yourself. With that said, never feel like you have to watch a bad movie just to have a fully informed opinion. I turned Netflix's Blonde, which came out in 2022, off about halfway through. If you've seen Blonde, then you probably get it. And I simply walked out of Skinamarink, which came out in January of this year. That was the first time I've ever walked out of a movie, and I was like, this isn't for me. I was not the target audience for this. It's an hour and a half of very little going on. But the movie just wasn't for me. I don't need to finish those movies to know that they aren't for me. My entire point is if you like Pixar movies, then give Elemental a chance. The movie is deeper than its comparisons and bad marketing jokes. I enjoyed the movie's jokes, romance, and self-exploration. I'm excited to see what Pixar has coming next because I do not believe those Pixars have fallen off jokes, takes. You're wrong. It hasn't. And I haven't even seen like Luca or anything like that, but I know you're wrong. And I'm looking forward to more stories told from these perspectives because keep people of color behind the screen, okay? That's how we get good takes. That's how we get good movies. That's how we get good perspectives. Keep them behind the screen, okay? And in front of the screen too. At the very least, the racism allegory in this film is nowhere near as bad as Zootopia, and that movie has won an Oscar. All tea, all shade. So take all of this with a grain of salt and do your best to watch as many movies as possible. And the next part that I'm about to say will probably be the most controversial take in this entire essay. But I was disappointed with the Up short film that played before the movie. I'm so sorry to all you Up stans. I like the movie too. I've seen it. It's great. I cried. We all cried. But like, the short film is about Carl, I think that's his name, going on his first date since Ellie passed away. And it was giving very Disney Nickelodeon sitcom when the 15-year-old boy or girl goes on their first date, and it's kind of like them running around not really knowing how to get ready, but like not in like an endearing, oh he's getting over grief, oh he's trying to learn to do things new, but like I said, in like a very Disney Nickelodeon sitcom kind of way. And I was just like, oh, this, it wasn't giving the vibes of like a continuation of Up. It was like someone saw Up and decided to make a short film about like fan fiction into a short film because they saw Up. That's what it was giving. I'm so sorry to tell you that. But if you like the short film, that's okay, because we can still like different things but still like each other. But that's all I got, y'all. That's the entire essay. Let me know if you like videos like this. In my next video, we're gonna get into the blackening, and like we're gonna get into it. Have a drink, have some popcorn, because we're really gonna get into it. We're gonna go over the history of horror, how that relates to black people, and why The Blackening is probably one of the best films of this year. And it's so much, and it's funny, but it's so much deeper than a comedy. And if you haven't seen Elemental or The Blackening, make sure you watch both of those so we can talk about this together. That's what all of this is for. What are you doing? But until next time, y'all. Bye.